Welcome to part 5. This session here is going to be very short, or it's not really going to involve so much of coding in here, okay? So here what we want to do is, I really want to show you guys what is unit testing, or rather explain more as to what is unit testing by actually showing you how the code is structured at the moment, okay? So if you look at our bank account here, we have the deposit method here. Here the deposit method calls notify client, right? So you check notify client. Notify client actually calls, it creates an instance of a notification service, and it calls the notify all channels method in order to send SMSs and emails, so to say, right? So now, what's supposed to happen here? Now you're writing your test. How are you going to test this functionality here? What happens if the service, or one of those services, are down and you're calling that method there? That's going to throw some sort of an exception, right? So when it does, what's going to happen to your test? Let's actually take you through that scenario, okay? Let's go to notify client here. Notify client calls notify all. So I'm going to right click here and go to implementation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these methods here. I'm going to just comment them out. And I'm going to then throw an exception here. This is me simulating that whole scenario where the email service or the SMS service is down, or both of them for that matter, right, are down. Or assuming that you write in your application and the team that's actually in charge of writing those APIs for sending those notifications, they're still busy with them. So they're not ready for you yet, okay? And you finished with your part of the code. How do you then test your methods or your functionality without really having those issues? So let me introduce the problem here. So these are down. So we're going to come here and we're going to run our test. Again, all I did was make sure that those, or simulate those services being down. And then let's see what happens. Now, if you look at it, our results is no longer our balance being added onto our deposit being added onto our balance, rather, right? Our results is actually this exception here, the communication channel exception. Then we're saying email or SMS service are down, whatever the case might be, right? Either or, right? So if you think about it now, why is that the case? Those services are down, but your method, or rather your test, is failing. Why is that the case? And the reason is because your method is actually returning, the deposit method is returning an exception as opposed to returning the actual amount or the value of the deposit, okay, of your balance after depositing. And that's very important to understand. We are throwing an exception, but we're not returning the current balance now with the older balance and the new deposited amount. So why is this a problem? Now I'm going to walk you through a scenario here. Say, for example, you go to an ATM right now. So you are stuck somewhere in the middle of nowhere, right? But there is an ATM and you need to catch a cab or taxi, whatever you want to call it, right? And the only way you could do that the place that you are at that point in time, they only take cash. So you cannot say, I'm going to swipe. You cannot do none of that. You cannot do transfer. You cannot do none of that. You need actual cash. What do? You see the ATM. You quickly run to the ATM. You put in your card. Hey, you punch in your PIN and you tell them exactly how much you want, or you tell the machine rather how much you want. You say, hey, I want 500 Rand. Right. Then the machine says, oh, okay. It goes through all the stages there where it checks if you have enough money. It says, yes, you do have enough money. Then from then on, it says, okay, you're done, man. The money's coming out, right? So it says, okay, transaction started. And then as the transaction starts, it gets to a point where it says, okay, it's about to dispense the money, right? But as it's about to send an SMS notification to you that there's a withdrawal, then one of the services are down somewhere there, whatever bank that you're using, right? One of the services are down. And now the question is this now. You get that exception and the bank automatically say, oops, the ATM rather, oops, I ran into an exception, right? So I cannot take out the money. I cannot dispense it because I ran into an exception. I need to roll back. Are you getting where I'm getting here? So does that make sense to you? If you think about it, notification, and to be quite honest, most of us don't even care about those SMSs at that point in time. We care about the money, not the SMS. So yes, I want to receive it, but it's an added on value, okay? That's a value added service, okay? So even if it doesn't happen at that moment in time, if it happens 10 minutes later, I don't care much. I got what I wanted. What I wanted was the money. So that's why I'm introducing this problem here that when you test, you must only test the functionality that needs to happen there. The other portion of notification and SMSs and everything like that, it's actually not even relevant to this here. It will only matter later when we want to test end-to-end there, or rather, I want to test my method that is doing all of those things via our integration test. But with unit test, it shouldn't matter. An integration test, you would care about those when both parties are ready. The parties that are in charge of the APIs that are sending out notifications, and you are also ready on your side. But for unit tests, you are only testing what you did because you know that you did it. Okay, it's as simple as that. So let's now look into how we can get around that. You can simply get around that by saying, hey, you know what? I can go here and comment this portion out, right? And then by just commenting that out, I run. So this method is void anyway. It doesn't return anything. So, hey, that will pass. But would you want to do that to your production code though? And then once it passes, you forget to change it back. And then what happens is you then say everything is passing, and you compile your code, you build your code, and then you deploy and notice that people don't get notifications, and then you get into trouble for that, okay? So we don't want to do this here. So what do we want to do in order to do our testing here, okay? Let's go back here actually and make sure that we are having that problem again. We are having the problem, okay? What are we going to do in order for us to get around this problem here and to test our class only, our unit only? And that's a topic for the next session here. So you guys check me out there. I'll explain, I've already explained what the issue is, but then I'll explain the solution and the problem with our code here that's actually causing that. Catch me on the next part. What's that?